Good morning, Scott Pasternak with Burns and McDonnell, representing the general public.
Good morning, Jeff Mayfield, North Texas Municipal Water District, representing a public solid waste district or authority.
Cheryl Murga with the Houston-Galveston Area Council, representing Planning Region.
Dave Yankee, New Gen Strategy Solutions, representing the financial community.
Judge David Dillard, Concho County, representing counties under 10,000.
Megan Henson, TCEQ, MSW Permit Section.
Ana Lleras, TCEQ, MSW Permit Section. And at this time, I'll take roll of everybody that is on Teams. Scott Trebus.
And if you'd make sure your mic's on so they can get a verbal yes.
Risa Weinberger.
I see her, but she said she still didn't have sound.
Is it working?
But I can hear y'all.
Yeah, I can see her.
Yeah, they can't hear. Hey, Frank, if you can hear us, put a thumbs up.
I can hear just fine, Dave. Thank you.
I can hear you too, Dave.
All right. Doesn't look like it's working.
This is Steve Shannon by telephone. I can hear your conversation.
Okay, it sounds
Also
like
by
you can
telephone.
hear us, but I'm not sure if do y'all have your mics on? Okay.
I do.
Yep.
I can't tell. Is that Charlie up in the top?
That is.
Well, would you have her take her mic off so we can hear? Because I don't know if the verbal's working.
Can y'all hear us?
Audio.
Chance, can you make sure everybody has access to I don't think their mics are working.
We can, I can unmute. It's letting me unmute.
It seems like we can hear each other. but
Charlie,
they
can you
can't
say
hear us.
something?
Hey, how y'all doing? Anything? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Anything?
we can't hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. Feel like I'm fishing.
Charlie, can you try again?
Hey, how y'all doing? Can y'all
Okay.
hear me yet?
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's give them a minute to make sure everybody is mic'd up in the back, that everybody has access. The microphones might be turned off, the computer back there.
It's close.
Anna, can you say something to see if Risa can hear?
Yes. Test, test. Risa, can you hear?
Okay, cool.
Oh, could she hear?
Can we hear Risa? Have we?
Risa, would you say something so we know we can? Yeah, her mouth's moving.
Yeah, Risa, we can't hear you.
There's Richard. I can't see Richard up there. Oh, yeah, there he is.
Well,
you hear me?
Yes, I think I can. I'll start over again. Scott Trebus. I know Risa's there. I can see her. Tanel Atkins. Richard Bromowitz.
Here.
And can you say who you're representing, please?
Oh, representing the public.
Chuck Rivette. I thought I saw your.
Good morning. I'm Chuck Rivette. I represent a professional with experience operating a commercial landfill. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Richard McHale. Steve Shannon.
Good morning. This is Steve Shannon. I represent a public recycling organization. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Frank Pugsley.
Good morning, Frank Pugsley. I represent a professional engineer in private practice with experience in municipal solid waste permitting and design.
And last but not least is Hoppy Hayden. All right, so we have 9 attending.
Okay. And what do we need for a quorum?
Good question. We have 14 members right now. Well,
So
15
we should
with the
be
new
good.
one.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a little painful, but welcome everybody to our MSWRRAC meeting.
I'm sorry, can I just have people in
Yeah.
the audience introduce
Yep.
themselves?
Morning, Gene Mueller with TCQ, a Sunset Review Chief.
Allison Jenkins in the toxicology division.
Tom Footabondas, TCP.
Larry Lane with Texas Disposal System. Kimberly Tabby with Texas Association of Regional Council. We also have Madison Howard, Savannah Rains, and Chance Robinson in the back.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone being here. If there aren't any other comments or housekeeping, we'll just move to Charlie and get her update, Waste Permits Division update.
Hey, good morning, y'all. I'm Charlie Fritz, Deputy Director of the Waste Permits Division. So here's a quick update. Gene is actually going to cover Sunset, so I'll cover just some bills and then also a quick trade fair. On the trade fair, we wanted to let y'all know that we can get MSWRRAC members comped tickets to trade fair, but you have to let us know by tomorrow. So let Megan or Anna or myself know by tomorrow if you want free trade fair tickets. For bills, here is a quick, Anna sent out a spreadsheet. Here's another version. Okay, sharing my screen if y'all can see it. So right now, and y'all can see it? People in the room?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, cool. The 2 most important ones right now are the TCQ sunset bills. Those are going through. Both have been heard in their committees. And one, the Senate bill right now has been voted out of committee. From our understanding, the Senate bill is going to be, Senate Bill 1397 is going to be the one that goes through both chambers, but that changes daily. So it may change tomorrow, and everything with Sunset changes daily. So just it's one of those just kind of have to keep updated with. For bills impacting directly MSW permits, we've got about 5 bills, a couple medical waste bills, and then some bills about the permitting process, the NOD process, and then standards for floodplains and roads for MSW facilities. The medical waste bills have been heard out at, only one of the House bill for the medical waste one has been heard at committee and has been voted out, but it hasn't reached the floor yet. For bills where, wrong one. Y'all's favorite bills are the ones where there's an impact to TCQ, there's an impact to the MSW program, but it's more about contracts and franchise fees. So there's 7 of those. We analyze them. We often don't have a lot of input because they are about contracts, about franchise fees, about disposal services in counties. So we're aware of them. We don't have a lot of comments on them. But as you can see, a couple have been, Darby's bill has been heard in environmental regs and voted out, but hasn't reached the floor yet. And then also Kempel's bill has been heard and voted out, but hasn't reached the House floor yet. So those two are the only ones that have been heard so far at committees. And just a general overview on the legislative process. All bills have to go through committee, a committee hearing. So that's kind of the first important step. A lot of bills never actually get a hearing. So if one's actually had a hearing, it's at least going down the first couple of steps. There's many more steps for it to go through, but at least the first big hurdle is always that first hearing. A couple other ones. So we actually had a good number of scrap tire bills this year, 5 bills, and a number of them have actually gone through hearing. Well, 2 today, and then 1 a couple weeks ago. So there's a number of scrap tire bills out there about illegal dumping, about county authority to enforce illegal dumping, and then some other just scrap tire rules. And then that's kind of, and then there's a couple recycling bills. Most of these do not have a direct impact to MSW, except this advanced recycling one. That's HB 3060 and SB 2044. This is the advanced recycling bill. That one's been, the House bill has been heard in environmental regs and voted out. The other bills are about more plastic recycling, bottle fee bill, and other types of recycling programs. And then there's a number of bills that just have an agency-wide impact, but could impact the permitting program. Like notice procedures, contested case hearing procedures, that the agency, if these bills pass, the agency will have to change. Everybody will have to change, not just waste permits. So I won't spend much time on those. And then there's a couple other bills and some oil and gas bills too. So that's the main ones I know y'all are concerned about are the MSW program bills and the indirect bills. Any questions about those?
No, Charlie, I appreciate it. I do want to open it up. We've heard from, some cities, again, there are some of these bills out here that would have franchise fee limitations. Didn't know if there were any items specifically that anyone on the advisory council wanted to mention. I seem to recall there was one related to exclusive franchises and having to, if I'm remembering it correctly, I thought there was one related to exclusive franchises that could take some of those capabilities away. Does anybody recall that? Chuck or Scott or anyone else? Travis?
Yeah, I can speak to that one. I don't know the bill number, but it's the one that I think was filed by Kempel. And it has been, I think, based on what Charlie showed, favorably voted out of committee. And so that bill, as you're saying, Dave, would create, I guess, greater restrictions or requirements related to decisions that municipalities could make in terms of granting exclusive franchises. But essentially what it says is that if you do not go through a formal procurement process, that there are certain notification requirements that are specified in the bill. And then if there are companies that are presently providing services via non-exclusive contracts, that they would have up to, I think it's 2 years or whenever their contract would expire to exit those agreements. However, those provisions do not apply if a city goes through a formal public procurement process.
Okay.
So I'll open it up to if anybody else has any other perspectives on it, but that's my understanding of that bill.
No, I appreciate you saying that. So bottom line, if they go through a procurement process, you could have an exclusive provider, say for front load and roll off or what have you.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have comments on that one?
I think he described it pretty well. To put it in slightly different words, it's just to give people a chance to exit gracefully with the investment that they have in a community and not just be told in 2 months, you got to pick everything up.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Scott. Any other bills folks have comments on? Okay. Well, I'm going to continue to watch some of those on the franchise fee side. I know for some of the cities there, that's an issue for some of them. So, okay. Thanks, Charlie. Okay. Moving down, Megan, if you want to give an update on the MSW permit section.
Morning. Close enough. Okay, so for staffing in MSW, we currently have 3 vacancies. These are the same vacancies from the last time we met. We have 2 geoscientists and a work leader position. We are hoping to get the work leader position filled, but are having trouble with getting qualified applicants for the geoscientist position. We're still working through that. For major applications under review, we have 29 permits and 7 registrations. So a little bit of an increase since the last time we met. We did get a question from one of the council members related to some template language on our notice of deficiency emails related to if a technically sufficient response isn't provided, your application may be returned. So just wanted to speak to that a little bit. This language has been on there for a while. I don't have an exact date, but this is really, it's to keep the application process moving. We would not return an application without first meeting with applicants and their consultants, working through the issues to the best of our ability. It wouldn't be, you didn't provide an adequate response and we return your application. But, we have that language in there just to make sure everyone knows we have to keep that review process going. And it's not uncommon for applications to have more than one notice of deficiency. So if issues are complex and we're having a hard time working through them, we'll have a meeting, we'll brainstorm, and of course, discuss the issues before making any decisions about returning an application. Any questions related to that? That was a member topic.
I think that was a question more from the engineering side. So I'll put it out to some of you like Scott and Frank and some of you if there are any questions. Chuck. Okay.
Hopefully that put everyone's mind at ease when they see that language in there.
Yeah, no question. But Megan, what you just said, we definitely appreciate your efforts as well as your team and all of TCQ staff to have that verbal interaction during the, these various permits or mods, because that is extremely helpful.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. And thank you for those who meet with us. And, we also want to encourage pre-application meetings. That's something we started doing. I shouldn't say started, but we've been doing for a long time. But being a new section manager, I ask for them. So we're happy to have pre-application meetings where we can iron out some of the details before the application is formally submitted. All right, next topic is exiting post-closure care guidance. We are still working on getting that wrapped up. Previously we received comments from industry folks as well as council members. So we are making those revisions and would plan to have a stakeholder meeting before finalizing the draft guidance, just go over the changes. We don't have a date yet, but we are hoping to do that before summer. So late spring, maybe early summer. You may have seen in our MSW newsletter that we have a webinar scheduled for April 26th at 11 a.m. And this is to go over some of the forms that we've discussed recently on the public participation. So it's the plain language summary. This form went into effect May 2020, 2. And so it's been out there for a little while. Some folks have already submitted it with their application. And the other one is a public involvement plan. And that went into effect in November of 2022. So these are still relatively new forms. So the webinar is going to be a walkthrough step by step of here's what the form is, and we're going to explain what you need to provide and also reference the instructions. So be sure to join if you're available, and you can learn all about those exciting public participation plan forms. Any questions on the webinar? Oh, and there should be a registration link in the MSW newsletter form or newsletter. Do we have one online? I think we need to add it to our MSW homepage so folks can register online as well. So we'll make sure to do that. And then Charlie spoke to this a little bit. We have trade fair coming up May 16th and 17th. And of course, MSW has a tract and a whole day of great topics. So this year we're talking about scrap tire management, recycling and composting regulations, technical considerations for land use of over a closed MSW landfill. We call it sub-T, subchapter T. So that's a topic that's really been having a lot of action lately, as well as common deficiencies for MSW applications. And then finally, closure, post-closure care, and exiting PCC. So those are going to be the MSW topics this year, and we hope to see y'all there.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the TCEQ Sunset Review. Gene?
All right. Hello. Yes. Good morning, members.
Good morning.
I have a, I think, fairly simple update for y'all on the sunset review. I watched Charlie's update at the January 12th MSWRRAC meeting and saw the items she presented. So there, I think the most recent, I guess, milestone we had hit was the November hearing. So since January 12th, obviously the big item is that we had the bills filed at the beginning of March. So House Bill 1505 and Senate Bill 1397. We had the House bill was carried by Representative Keith Bell, and that was put into the Environmental Regulation Committee. There was a public hearing passed mid-March, and right now that one is still left pending in committee. The Senate Bill 1397, that was carried by Senator Charles Schwartner, and that one also had the public hearing in March 23rd, or let me see if I can get that exact date. March 29th, 23rd was actually the environmental reg public hearing. So we had that public hearing. As Charlie mentioned, that one has moved out of committee. So that actually just happened a couple days ago. Generally, what the bill is focusing on is, if you look at the Sunset Staff Report, there's statutory recommendations and management actions. So these are focusing on the statutory changes. And currently, there was 16 statutory items as recommendations, and you'll still see those in some way within this bill. There is one additional item that's been added in Section 12, and that's beyond, I guess, what was typically in the sunset recommendations. And what that one is doing is charging the TCEQ with conducting some community outreach and public education on the permitting process. So that Section 12 item is kind of, a new piece in that committee substitute in the Senate bill. Some of the things I saw at the January 12th meeting, I will share. A development as the substitute goes is there was the requirement that the agency post administrative complete applications. And I think I saw some questions from this committee or from this council on that. And that one has expanded to where it would be the agency posting administratively complete, and then also any kind of modifications, amendments that come along after that. So it's kind of capturing the technically complete as well. And again, that would be the agency hosting that on our website. There is an allowance in there that if certain things like some well boring logs, or if there's things that are just unruly and too big and are difficult for us to post online, there's an allowance in there that we don't have to post those online. But that's kind of a big, I would say, or one of the kind of a change to be aware of, as you may have initially seen that being administratively complete. There's some changes, and I'm mainly thinking about the council. There's also the posting of notifications. So, the electronic posting of notifications, so that's an allowance that the agency may do that. What you'll see in a lot of the language is that, obviously if there's a federal requirement that we do something, then we can't perhaps post a notice electronically if it does have to be, via paper or newspaper or things like that. There's also the virtual public meetings. So that one is still there. And that one is also, it allows, right now the allowance is that we have the option of hosting a virtual public meeting. And that's generally how that one's written. With that said, yeah, again, I think that's mainly it. So you'll see some modifications in the amendments. There's some additional language. One thing I'll share is that we are kind of nearing the finish line. So the important thing is, if you look at the Sunset webpage, you'll see the staff report. There was the initial staff report. Right now, we're in kind of the second staff report, and there's a third and final staff report, and that'll come up in July. So I think at this MSWRRAC's next meeting's in July, maybe July 13th, that'll be very close. We may have the final Sunset staff report that captures all the final decisions, what's come out of the bill, obviously with session ending in late May. So I think that'll be a good time to maybe provide some updates on what has actually happened and what are the final, what is the final outcome. But that's generally where we stand right now on the Sunset.
Okay. Yeah, question for you. So if you're just looking right now, and again, it's not done, but if you're where you are right now, what do you think the biggest change would be for TCEQ coming out of this? Because it seems like communication and outreach is one of the big items. Do you think that's the biggest, or is there something else?
Yeah, we must have had something happening right there, because yeah, that's absolutely, it's the transparency, public outreach, making information available, the website improvements. So I think a lot of it definitely goes out to public outreach. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Okay. No. Any other questions from any of the members? Looks like you're getting off easy.
Well, thank you. You're so kind. Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Before we head to the next topic, I
Sure.
think a couple more members have signed on.
Okay.
Let's see, Richard McHale. Are you on the phone?
Yes,
or-
I am here.
Okay, and who do you represent?
I represent city or county solid waste agencies.
Okay, has Scott Trebus joined? Tanel Atkins? Okay, we can go on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next up, we're going to have an update on the regional solid waste management plans.
Good morning, Council. My name is Santos Olivares. I'm the manager for the Business and Program Services section. The rulemaking to adopt the regional solid waste management plans was proposed to the Commission in February. We opened public comment shortly after that in March. We did have a public comment hearing on March 23rd, and the public comment period closed on March 27th. Right now, we're kind of assessing comments, analyzing them. We'll be preparing responses to those comments. And right now, we're looking at probably filing the complete packet for adoption by the Commission around the end of June, and hopefully get it scheduled for the July 19th Commission agenda. Approval at that time will give us an effective date of August 10th of the plans. So that's kind of the timeline of the plans. In support of the plans as well, in anticipation of appropriation of funding for the regional grant program. We're in the middle of developing contracts for those. And the current contracts will end on August 31st, and that'll allow a seamless transition to the new contracts. And of course, those contracts and the program there will be used to support the strategies and goals that are in the new plans. So we're really looking, and I know the COGS are as well, looking forward to that and continuing our partnership with the programs.
Okay.
So
let me ask you a question. Again, they have to get approved by the commission, but roughly when do you think those would be posted online?
So one of the things we did is when we proposed the approval of the plans, we posted those online.
Okay.
So there's links available on the webpage. We can certainly get that webpage out to all the members, and all 24 are listed on there.
Okay, great. Now I know that'll be a lot of good information. So, okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks for that information. Just wanted to ask, based on the public comments that you received so far, or that you received, do you have any sense of whether any of those comments would create a need for any of the COGS to need to go back and update any components to their plans?
Yeah, we're still looking at them. But right now, once we come up with that, we'll respond to those comments. And of course, certainly we'll reach out to the COGS if there's going to be a need for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we are moving right along. Okay, this next topic, it's something we're seeing a lot of, the PFAS. I'm not going to try to say the full name, but we're seeing it in the solid waste area, water and wastewater. It's just a big issue. So appreciate Allison you being here.
Good morning. I'm Allison Jenkins, and I'm in the Toxicology Division. Our official name is Toxicology Risk Assessment and Research Division. So we have, if you didn't know, we have about 15 toxicologists here at the TCQ. We're under the Office of the Executive Director, and we support different programs in the TCQ. So this is kind of a short presentation, but if you go to the trade fair, one of my colleagues, Janet Hamilton, is giving a whole hour on PFAS. And so I gave this similar presentation at the trade fair last year, if you were there. So there's been a lot of updates. So I'm just going to touch on a few things, and if you have questions, we can talk about those at the end. There's also another website that we also support, review and provide updates from the TCQ, and that's the ITRC, Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council. So if you're looking for information on PFAS, that's a good website to go to also. Yeah. Is it the arrow? Mm-hmm. It's I pronounce it PFAS because it is just a acronym soup. There are over like 9,000 or 10,000 PFAS in EPA's latest database. So, and the names are very, very long. So the whole group is just called PFAS. It's a plural noun. So because there's the most common PFAS that you hear about are PFOA and FOS. So you have to be really careful in how you pronounce these. But I'm going to cover what are PFAS, some sources and exposure to PFAS, health effects. I have some information about PFAS in Texas, and then PFAS health advisories and regulation. If you know, EPA just came out with their draft MCLs for drinking water programs, and then some conclusions. Are we ready? Okay. Let's see. So because PFAS are so stable, whoa, this is not right. Okay, oh, sorry. They're synthetic chemicals. They don't occur naturally in the environment. They're very stable. And so they've been used since the 1940s. I guess the most well-known one is probably PFOA, which is the one that was used in Teflon made by 3M. They're very stable. They hang around in the environment a long time. They also bioaccumulate in animals and humans. So let's see, there's two primary classes, non-polymers and polymers of PFAS, and the ones that we most focus on for environmental concern are the non-polymers. You can see here a list of all of their uses. Because of their ability to resist water and stains, they're oil resistant. They're used in many, many products, or have been used in many products. Like I said, Teflon cookware used to contain PFAS, but no longer. Those have been phased out. Another place where we see them in the environment is from their use in firefighting foams, the AFFFs, used at military installations, at airports. And so when those were used, we now find those sometimes in groundwater around those facilities. Potential sources of PFAS, manufacture of raw materials, manufacture of products containing PFAS, and then also the use of products containing PFAS, either industrial or consumer goods, potential exposures that people can be exposed to. And you can see all the different places that we can find PFAS, consumer products, and environmental media, mainly groundwater, public drinking water, and food contact materials. So you can see from this chart that these are the four most common PFAS, and they are also found in 98% of adults in the US. But you can see that this is a chart showing blood concentrations of the four most common PFAS. They've dramatically decreased since the US manufacturers started phasing out PFAS, but they're still in us. But it's important to note that even though we have PFAS in our bodies, it doesn't mean we can't really tell, are we going to have health effects resulting from those, how much we were exposed to, what's going to happen. It really doesn't tell us anything except that we all have PFAS in our blood, or 98% of us. So they've done epidemiology studies, or studies in humans. We also have a lot of animal studies as well. And these studies suggest associations between PFAS and different health effects. And when we say associations, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are caused by PFAS, but these are some of the health effects that are associated with PFAS exposure. And so that decreased antibody response to vaccines is one that the EPA has used for support for some of their toxicity factors for PFAS. So now I'll kind of move on to Texas sites. I believe this is updated, that we have about 33 remediation sites that have PFAS contamination, and those include former manufacturers, fire training facilities. Most of these are Department of Defense sites. And I think the one that where we first got involved with PFAS contamination and toxicology and probably remediation was this former Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock. And you can see that they've sampled the Department of Defense has sampled many wells out there. 529 private, 6 public water supply wells out there. And then 255 private wells and 4 public wells exceed EPA health advisory levels or TCEQ PCLs. And the PCLs are the comparison values used in our remediation program, protective concentration levels. So those are health-based levels. And so it's a very large site, and we've been working on that site for, over 10 years now. So the PFAS plume extends over 2.5 miles now. So.
Can I just ask real quick? So when you have that, is that in the Ogallala then?
I'm not sure. I think it is, but I'm not sure.
No. Okay.
I'm not the one to ask about.
Yeah,
that,
but those plumes, are those stationary? Do those move?
Yeah. As far as I know, yes, it is. I mean, the groundwater is moving. Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
So in toxicology, in response to PFAS measured at remediation sites, the TCEQ established toxicity factors for 16 PFAS. And we were, EPA, we were ahead of EPA in that. So one of the first, maybe the only state that has toxicity factors for 16 PFAS. And so those were used to derive the PCLs that I spoke about before and for use in our remediation program. And so some of those toxicity factors were updated in just a couple of months ago based on new information. And then toxicology is in the process now of updating those 16 toxicity factors for PFAS. We're in the middle of a big literature search right now. And as you can imagine, the toxicity studies there's quite a few of those, and they're being published all the time. So we have to stay on top of all that new scientific literature to make sure that our toxicity factors are updated and state of the science. So toxicity factors are concentrations of a chemical that are considered to be health protective to humans, including sensitive individuals. And so the toxicology division, we develop toxicity factors for many chemicals. And so that's one of our main functions here at the TCEQ. So some of y'all may be familiar with the PFAS sampling for the public drinking water systems. This was the one UCMR 3, which looked at 6 PFAS. That information is, it's an EPA program, and so the results of that are on the EPA website. But you can see at the bottom, the Texas results, we had 7 detections out of over 17,000 samples, and all detections were below the EPA health advisory level. So that was conducted 2013 to 2015. And then the UCMR 5, which is taking place now, 2023 to 2025, is looking at 29 PFAS. So they've expanded to 29 PFAS. And also lithium. So, and that is this year through 2025. So that information is on the EPA's website, but we also look at results and help drinking water communicate those results and understand those results. In addition to the UCMR, the TCEQ got federal funding.
Can we ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, Jeff.
So on that prior slide, so the very last bullet, all detections below EPA health advisory level, is that a level that was different than what has recently been put out for drinking water?
Yes.
And was it much higher or lower?
Lower.
Okay.
It's health advisory levels are non-regulatory levels. that EPA will put out before, sometimes before or in addition to maximum contaminant levels. So it's a non-regulatory level. And I may have a slide that shows the health advisory levels in a minute. So the TCEQ received grant money, and we sampled for PFAS around the state in areas and in systems where UCMR were not sampled under UCMR 3 or 5. And so that is currently ongoing now. So you can see we have had more samples now with detects. And I don't have a good summary of anything more than that, samples with detects. I don't know the magnitude of those detections. And as was kind of talked about, these are the recently proposed regulations for public drinking water systems. And so the EPA came out with proposed regulations for 6 PFAS. And these would be MCLs. So public water systems would be required to monitor for them, notify the public when those were detected. And if they exceed the standards, public water systems would be required to reduce the levels of PFAS.
Sorry, one other question then. So for, do you know if for the EPA proposal of the 6 PFAS, was that different than the 6 that you were monitoring through UCMR 3?
Cool. I don't know. I can find that out. I'm not sure. I could look very quickly and find that out after. I'll do that for you. So once finalized, water systems would have 3 years to be in compliance with the MCLs. And also of note, the final MCLs will become the PCLs for groundwater in the TCEQ remediation program. So there's in the Texas Risk Reduction Program rule, it says that MCLs are the PCLs. So that's of note. So this is currently up for public comment right now through the end of May. So these are the proposed MCLs. And you can, there's the interim health advisory levels. You can see for PFO and PFOS. So the MCLs are the practical quantitation levels. So they're have been increased because those were very difficult to measure, the health advisory levels. So the maximum contaminant level or the practical quantitation levels for those 2 PFAS. So those are 2 of the MCLs. And then the next 4, they have what's called a hazard index approach. And so for those 4, you see the health-based concentration and then the practical quantitation level. So those are above the practical quantitation level.
So can I ask a question here? So if you go back to that other slide.
This one?
There, thank you. So if you can clarify the terminology, or so what's the difference between an MCL and then the interim health advisory? Because all I know is those numbers are sure a lot smaller under interim health.
Well, the health advisory levels are non-regulatory levels, and they were based strictly on, they're strictly health-based. The MCLs can consider other things other than, technological feasibility, treatment, analytical ability, cost. And so the MCLs, then they decided to make those at the practical quantitation level.
So just so I understand, so like on the health in the far right column, they're saying that's probably as much as you should have. And then MCL, which is a lot higher, they're saying practically, it's not feasible to get down to those levels. So you can go with this level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know.
And
if
actually the MCL, there's also an MCLG or MCL goal, I think is 0 for these.
I don't know if that makes me feel better or not, saying, well, from a health standpoint, you should have this amount, but you can, because it's practical, you can have a much higher level. Doesn't that go back to, I know one of the, and we heard this on the wastewater side for systems, are some of the labs, one of the things I heard just anecdotally, like the labs for some of these levels, they can't even test to these
Correct.
levels.
Mhm.
So it's like, how do you
Yes, it's
know what
very
you
expensive.
don't know?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's one of the main reasons they chose to make the MCL at the practical quantitation.
Right. And
Level.
many of the labs that even can analyze this can go down to about 2 parts per trillion reliably. And so it was historically, this is an overgeneralization, but when the EPA sets these kind of numbers, it's usually at least 3 times that. And this one they picked 2 times, which is just kind of interesting.
Okay.
And the lab effort that's associated with this is so burdensome, from starting with sampling. If you washed your hair or you took a shower and you use soap, a lot of these are present, and so you almost have to rid yourself of any sort of applications onto your body for like a day or so prior, and then you have to be very specific in how you do your sampling. And then when it gets brought in, it's the same kind of thing. It's almost like a clean room, because you don't want to have to worry about having some sort of cross contamination because these numbers are so low.
Mm-hmm. So the so the EPA number is the MCL, so it's set at a higher level. And so is that basically so the labs can measure it also? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are both EPA levels.
Okay.
So they set health advisory levels for some contaminants, and there's only a very few chemicals that EPA will set a maximum contaminant level for.
Okay.
But because of, I guess, concern across the US about PFAS and, different regulations in different states, that people push to have MCLs established for at least those, for these 6.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
but yeah, that's what we have heard too about the lab. It's very easy for cross-contamination to take place when you're sampling. It's very expensive. And there's, back, 10 years ago or so, when we were concerned, private wells, there were not labs that were accredited to sample for PFAS in the state. So those are the other 4 that they have proposed MCLs for. And of course, it's not just a strict concentration MCL comparison. There's a whole, average calculation that takes place with public drinking water systems. So in summary, they're a diverse group of synthetic chemicals that have been used in consumer products, industry, firefighting foam. I think they're still used in some firefighting foams. The contamination occurs globally. It's not just in the US. They do have the potential to cause adverse health effects. We have 33 remediation sites with PFAS contamination in Texas. Most are military or former military sites. Most of that is groundwater contamination. And the TCEQ is developing updated toxicity factors for at least 16 PFAS and probably more if there's toxicity information. That's the other thing. There's so many of them, but there's not toxicity information for those. So it's really the 2 that have PFOA and PFOS that have a lot of toxicity information, and then just a little bit with the other PFAS. So, and then the proposed MCLs for public drinking water systems, and those are out for public comment right now. The public comment period ends May 30th of this year. And then if you have questions, That's my email address. And then we have an email talks box. And then our website, we have one for our division that also includes our toxicity factors for PFAS and updates on the research that we're doing right now with PFAS and updating our toxicity factors. So I urge you to keep in touch. We also have a listserv, and then if you go to the trade fair, please attend our PFAS presentation. So, any other questions or comments or?
I have acting as a proxy for Lisa. I have a question and comment. First question is, Lisa, I am most interested in how federal PFAS regulations may affect leachate management and composting regulations. Recognizing that federal rules are not final, is TCEQ anticipating potential modification of MSW composting rules? If so, how so?
That's not mine to answer. I'm not sure who.
Here, Megan, can you go on?
I'm not familiar with composting rules.
As based on our conversation, it sounds like TCQ is focused on drinking water right now, so we haven't looked into composting, into leachate, into any waste activities.
So when you say water and wastewater specifically, or just drinking water?
Well, I mean, we support all parts of the TCQ, but I have not heard of anything with wastewater per se. You know, the EPA is also has just come out within the last couple of months a new risk assessment methodology. I think it's under public comment right now for biosolids as well. So that may also have some PFAS component to it. I'm not really sure, but we have not been involved with wastewater and PFAS. So there may be other parts of the TCQ, you know, the wastewater program that is, I'm not aware of it.
Apologies, it was my fault. She meant MSW and composting, not MSW. Apologies.
No problem. I don't think that changes the response.
Slide 12. Recent draft, drinking water limit is 4 PPT for 6 full.
Okay. Yep. So, you know, we've heard, you know, I know there's been a concern with, you know, our subtitle D landfill is all of a sudden going to be a super fun site. And, so, I mean, those discussions are out there, but it sounds like that's not even on the radar in Texas right now. So I mean, this is an interesting topic. And again, it's like, you know, it's not good, but you're also trying to figure out, okay, what is manageable? Because you can get pretty costly also. So any other questions from members? Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves in Texas and nationally.
One from Lisa, these waste.
I'm definitely not the expert. That's why Allison's here. But, you know, it has been identified that landfills and hazardous waste facilities are sources of PFAS. But again, there's not activity towards regulating those.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know, I feel like, you know, like toxicology supports other areas of the TCQ. So I'm not really familiar. If I haven't heard about it with landfills, no, I have not. So, you know, there's another proposal I just saw this morning for listing some of certain PFAS as hazardous substances. So for circular purposes. So, yeah, but as we look at it, there are so many limitations and just not that much toxicity information. And so all these regulations really, you know, the heart of them or the basis of them is the toxicity information. And without that, it's difficult to come up with health-based regulation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The one I had added, and I just wanted some comments from some of the folks here, the council or TCEQ, the landfill methane gas mining. I had asked that we add this. Megan, is there anything you wanted to add, or can I just go in? All right. So I was just putting this in, and we had attached one of the articles that I had read in the Wall Street Journal. I guess I am old school. It's a copy of the article. It's not a link. But it is interesting that it seems there's an increased interest in some of the methane gas, the renewable gases, and so some of the information we've been provided here in the packet. And Megan, I will put you on the spot here. If you want to just walk through what you provided here, that would be great.
I'll have Anna do that since she got the list
You bet.
together.
Sure.
Yes, as part of, I guess in conjunction with this article, what I did was I included the list of active facilities that are currently recovering gas for beneficial use as of 2021. The map shows where they're all located, and then the list is, and basically, their names, permit numbers, and how much they processed and distributed, the power that was generated and sold, and the power that was generated and used on site. So that's part of what I had for
Thank
this.
you.
Mhm.
So this is just kind of a question. I just wanted to see what some of the folks' thoughts were. It looks like, just roughly there's about a quarter of the landfills that have gas recovery systems. Obviously, gas systems are expensive, in the larger landfills, it's more cost effective. But, some of the things they were talking about are with, the price of natural gas and that some of these landfills and some of the technology may become more cost effective to mine some of these other landfills, that are smaller and historically haven't been mined. And I just was opening it up to the council to see if, especially, I guess, put the engineers on the spot to see if they see this as more of an opportunity in Texas for some of these landfills where it has not been cost effective, that it might be cost effective going forward. And I'll just open it up.
I'll go first then. I think so there's a lot of factors that go into that, obviously. If it's an operating site, what is the how much waste is already in place? But right now, I think it's fairly safe to say that the renewable natural gas method is probably more profitable than electrical generation in general. And so the projects that I hear about are predominantly taking the gas and cleaning it up and making it renewable natural gas and putting it in a pipeline. The driver of a lot of that, though, is where's the pipeline? How close is it? And I don't know really a break point of how far is too far, but I know that's something that developers are always looking at is what's the closest location.
Mm-hmm.
Because besides getting, you can get royalties off of the gas that's being removed from the landfill, but then you also can get royalties on renewable ID number credits and credits, and those can be very lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
The credit parts.
Yeah. No, appreciate it. From Chuck or Scott, if you're on from Waste Management or Republic's view. Do you have any thoughts, comments on that?
Well, David, this is Chuck. I can just reiterate what Jeff said. We've actually been shutting down electrical plants and converting them to RNG. And the driver on that is very clearly the renewable credits and the funds associated with that. It in a very, 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 very gross manner. Natural gas right now bounces around 250 to 350 per standard cubic foot. And to clean the gas up out of a landfill may cost as much as $6, $7, or $8. So more than what you can buy regular gas for. So the economics are driven very, very much by the RINs, the renewable ID numbers Jeff was talking about, and whether or not you can flip that gas into your fleet. We try to take the gas we extract and flip it back into our compressed natural gas trucks.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you heal up there, Chuck, on the back surgery.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Okay.
Yeah, Chuck, good to hear from you and see you there. Hope you have a very speedy recovery. And I definitely agree with what both Jeff and Chuck mentioned in terms of the financial benefits that you see for these types of systems being really focused on what you can achieve in terms of the various types of environmental credits. For a client that we've worked with recently that's evaluating this, they're able to derive probably somewhere in the order of as much as 80 to 90% of the financial value of the revenue is directly from these environmental credits. And so that kind of gives you a sense of how important they are based on what Jeff and Chuck were talking about. And I also very much agree with what Chuck's perspective was in terms of seeing more and more of a transition to taking the landfill gas and utilizing it directly as renewable natural gas as compared to electricity or other uses. And just from a pure environmental greenhouse gas perspective, where you can take that landfill gas and put it back into trucks for fuel, that has one of the best environmental impacts that you can achieve. And so I think that's another key reason why we're seeing more activity in terms of landfill gas to energy systems, especially from an RNG perspective, is for companies that may be, say, in the natural gas business, and they are developing their own environmental goals. The more that they can do from a renewable perspective is very important to them. So hopefully that'll provide even greater stability on the financial perspective in terms of these types of markets going forward as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for everybody's input. That's good to know. Any other
Hey, Dave.
comments? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Rich. Rich Abramowitz. I have a quick question. Is there any movement or anyone looking at citing anaerobic digestion sites at landfills to take advantage of that RNG that might be able to be fed into the pipelines or back into trucks?
Yeah. Hey, Rich, this is Scott. That's a great question, and actually something I intended to mention in my prior comments. So the North Central Texas Council of Governments did complete a study, and I spoke about this, providing some highlights at one of the prior MSWRRAC meetings. And the whole point of that study was to evaluate what is the feasibility of taking more organic material, specifically food scraps, and then being able to divert that from being landfilled via anaerobic digesters. And so that entire study focused on evaluating the feasibility of that. And so, Rich, it did look at both the feasibility of those AD facilities being located both at landfills as well as to enhance existing wastewater treatment facilities that may already have some anaerobic digestion capabilities. And so if you want to take a look at that report, it's on the North Central Texas Council of Governments website. It's their Organics to Fuel feasibility study.
All right.
Okay, yeah,
Thank-
I'm aware of that. I was just wondering if anybody is kind of taking that one step further and kind of thinking about that.
Hopefully, and kind of to be determined at this stage.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Scott.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Richard. Okay. Um, that actually, we're ahead of schedule. I didn't have anything else on the agenda, so if you look at the last item, got some housekeeping to take care of. We've got to, first of all, approve the minutes from January 12th. Did I miss something? Okay, well, let me know if I do. So, I need someone to approve, make a motion to approve the minutes in a second. I was not at the January 12th meeting. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Jeff.
All right. All right. Um, let's see, action items. I don't see any action items that we have from this meeting. Megan, I don't think so. I think we're good there. Okay. Let's see, are there any public comments? Anyone online?
Dave, this is Rich Abramowitz again. I have a question, and I don't know if there's anybody here that can answer that, but I know that the EPA has put out a number of grant opportunities, including for some climate change program grant money. And I hear that there's been some intentions put forward by the state, and I'm wondering if at some point we can get an update on what the state is applying for.
That's a
Or
good
is
question.
yeah, or at least intending to apply for.
Yeah, so TCQ is applying for the Swiffer grant and as well as has applied for the composting grant that I'm blanking on the name, but Risa had asked us about it a few weeks ago. So we are applying for that one as well.
Oh, we are applying for that one?
And it sounds like it'll be a one-time $400,000 grant.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Hey,
Yeah,
real
this
quick,
is,
it's Charlie.
go ahead, Charlie.
Real quick on the pollution reduction grant. I just want to make it clear that that's a very large grant. And most likely Waste Permits is not going to run the administration of that grant if the agency does apply. So we don't know who's going to run that one or do all the paperwork to apply for it. But right now it's probably not going to be Waste Permits. So I just want to let you all know that I don't have a lot of information on that, and I probably won't going forward. But the Swiffer is, we'll have more information on the Swiffer as we get going on that one. So yeah, we could definitely provide more information in the summer. We'll probably have a lot more information as well.
Thank you, Charlie. Scott?
Thank you.
All right. Actually, going back, Richard, to your question from a few minutes ago, as far as if there are any communities that are moving ahead with implementing AD systems for RNG recovery. So one of the case studies that was included in that North Central Texas Council of Governments project that I referenced was the city of Denton. So I literally just got a text a couple of moments ago from the city saying, hey, they are moving ahead. So the city of Denton is moving forward with their anaerobic digestion system, which again is consistent with what I described earlier in terms of adding on to the existing wastewater system that does have AD capabilities, and it's a collaborative effort there between the solid waste department and water wastewater.
Great. Thank you, Scott. If there aren't any other closing comments, if I get a motion to adjourn the meeting first.
first. Is there anybody online on Teams? If you can raise your hand if you have any comments from the public. No hands. How about if you're on the phone, you can press *5 to raise your hand. No comments.
Okay. Well, our next meeting is July 13th, so if I can get a motion and a second to adjourn. Second, there we go. Thank you very much.